All right, I want to touch upon racism. I was just watching a video from the Advice Show, which is a YouTube channel. It's done by this gentleman, uh, and he happens to be black. And I just wanted to put that as a quality. That doesn't mean that there's no validity to what he does, because I find much of what he discusses to be pertinent, because he's a fellow human being. He's a fellow American. Um, and because I am a humanist and I believe in humanist ideology, and that we're all equal, that we're all want the same things, and that we all have great potential. And so, anyways, as I said, this particular video is a year old. Anyways, he was forwarding a video done by this white woman, and she's ranting about, why should I feel guilty for being white? Yes, there are white racists and so on and so forth, but there are also black racists, Asian racists, so on and so forth. So she just went on and on and on, and she pisses me off. Absolutely pisses me off, because there's a lot of them out there. And and there was something that the host of the show had said, that there are no black racists, and he's absolutely and utterly wrong. I completely and utterly disagree with that statement. There's a lot agree with. There's some things I disagree with him, but the thing is like, I made a comment. I was working for a company called Frank Lamparelli Oil. We did the Boston school buses, and we had and there was a mixed bag of people who drove the school buses. The vast majority of them were minorities who drove the school buses. Uh, uh, but there were white people, there were brown people, black people. Of course, I put in ironically, and basically it was I was just taking things. Uh, um, anyways, I just can't remember the word I used. But anyways, thing is, it's like, racism exists no matter how you ascribe, what you ascribe to. If you ascribe to being an Asian or a Korean, a Chinese, Egyptian, it doesn't matter. Racism exists. Uh, I made another video about how, class is a form of racism. It is, and it's one of the biggest factors in racism, because class dictates many of the other forms of racism. It's the pinnacle of where it starts, and how it evolves and how it propagates. But I digress. Oh, that's the word I was trying to remember. Digress. I meant I had mentioned in the comment about how there weren't really any East Asians bus drivers, but I pointed out, I digress. So the thing is that going back to the story of the bus driver, I would constantly tell them, don't run over the fuel holes. It's a 1.5, or it's a 1.5 inch hose, and it's filled with diesel and gas. Well, we used to do the gas and then also diesel, but I mean, if you rupture the hose, it gets all over the place. It's a massive headache to clean up. It has impacts on the environment and so on and so forth. And it could also, particularly with gas, it could ignite and start a fire. So I would constantly tell the bus drivers, don't run over the hose. And they would get to the point where people, it was oftentimes the same people that ran over the goddamn hose. And I would say, you people have to stop running over the hose. Now, when I say you people stop running over the hose, who are the only people driving around there? It's the bus drivers. So this woman took it as a, and she was black. She took it as a race issue. And but also this woman had called me a gook, a chink, and all sorts of other epithets and slurs before. And and I'm used to getting it mostly from white people, but there were occasions when other ethnicities would use these slurs, and so I largely ignored this. But this time, she had taken things even further. She went on a rant. She was calling me chink, gook, and all sorts of other stuff, and she was labeling me a racist and so on and so forth. And I got pissed off, and I said, and I used the term nigger, and I called her a nigger. And I said, why is it you can call me a chink, a gook, and whatnot, and I can't respond back to you? And I said, you're the one acting like a nigger because that's what nigger means, ignorant. And she took that to her boss, tried to get me fired. Thankfully, there were a bunch of bus drivers who were also happened to be black, and other minorities, who I was very friendly with, and they came over and backed me up and said, "No, this guy's not a racist." And he's been over to my house. My friend Virgil was like, he's been over to my house several times, and we get along great. He's never shown any racial overtones, and basically the driver, the black driver, school bus driver, tried to get me fired, and for using the word nigger at her, and she ended up she ended up bringing the boss at the school bus yard boss over to try to get me fired with my boss, who I was working with at the time, the guy that actually would be the owner of the Frank Lamparelli Oil. So, anyways, nothing happened. Became water under the bridge, but it was something that she had started. And and at the time, it was reverse racism was what had been a topic on the media. Although taking what the media has to say is you have to take it with a grain of salt. But so this going back to this woman that the Vice show had forwarded. She's talking about why should I feel guilty? Why should I take it? And that's very prevalent. That's very prevalent, but also it's on the nose because why should you, if you're not a racist and you're a humanist and you feel that there's no need for that sort of thing, that it's disgusting, that and you haven't done anything to promote it or advocate it or allow it, then you have no guilt. I had made a comment that I'm Korean, so if a Korean guy is a racist criminal pig or a Korean woman, am I supposed to feel guilty about them? Guilt for what they did? No. Hell no. Can I be compassionate, empathetic, and decent and moral, and advocate for equality, and advocate for criminalizing this sort of behavior and this ideology, or to find solutions, creative solutions for these problems? Those are the things I can do because I'm a decent person. At least I like to think so. And I get outraged when I see videos, when I hear about my fellow human beings being shot to death. I mean, I'll give you a couple of prime examples. All right, so we all know about the I'm sure many of us, not all, but I'm sure many of us have heard about the Ohio black security guard who had taken down a potential mass shooter, and the police came in and shot him. Well, the police ought to be in jail, and if not receive a lifetime sentence, I think they should get the death penalty, because that is just treasonous. It's the highest form of treason, I believe. But then there is also that the young 23-year-old white boy who was shot in a hotel. I believe it was in Las Vegas or one of the big gambling cities. He was hired by one of the hotels to take care of be pest control for pigeons. And somebody at the hotel saw him with the BB gun. They called the police, and they set up basically a guy in a SWAT, a quote unquote officer of the law, in fully armored and armed with an assault rifle, and basically he emptied out an entire friggin' clip into this poor kid. It was playing a demented game of Simon Says, where all the demented and criminally insane things were coming from this supposed fucking cop. Shoots this kid dead. I find that to be the same, because you're supposed to be an officer of the law. You're supposed to serve and protect. You don't fucking kill the people who you're supposed to be protecting. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're Hispanic. I don't care if you're Asian. I don't care what. You do not kill the people you're supposed to serve and protect. And that sort of thing outrages me. That sort of thing pisses me off. The fact that the black community and the other minority communities in this country, and not just in this country, but in fucking Europe, and other countries that are predominantly controlled by the white people who talk bullshit, those are the ones that are guilty. Not the people that live, the average person who's white, that do not have any ill intent towards others, no matter what their color of their skin or the shape of their eyes, or what religion they practice. Then you shouldn't feel guilty. You should be outraged for your fellow humans who have skin deep differences or skin deep differences in religion, because all of the religions, doesn't matter what you touch upon, have the same have elements of the same philosophical truisms in the tenets of the religion. The violent and contradictory issues, those in my book are plainly been put in there by those who want control, who want power, who want influence, and those are the avenues that help. And that is criminal. So, to all you white people out there who think that people calling out racism, and the black community has legitimate gripes and legitimate reasons for using the terminology that they use. If you have not contributed to this toxically criminal actions, then you have nothing to feel guilty about. Just as I don't feel guilty if some asshole that looks like me does or says things which are blatantly criminal, which are blatantly hypocritical, which are blatantly bigoted. You have no need to feel guilty about something like that. You have an obligation to call it out. You have an obligation to push for change. You have an obligation to accuse those who are promoting, propagating, and pushing, and those that ignore so that they can have their own little comfortable lives. Those are the obligations you have. Not because you're an American, but because you are a human. Because we are all Homo sapiens. And the obligations is to fight for equality, fight for everything that we hold in common. That is our obligation. That is our responsibility. Not to take the guilt of the criminals and the sinners upon ourselves. If you have nothing to fear, then don't take those fears upon yourselves. Are there irrational people who would take it even further? Yes. But those are so small, it's inconsequential. Life is about living, and it's about dying. We all get a chance to live, we all die. But if we and many of us die early and die badly, but if we all focus on making sure that we can push for responsible, reasonable, logical, moral, ethical, honorable, and eliminate hypocrisy and bigotry, and not doing anything because we don't because we feel it's political or religious, or we have to all take an active part. If we want a world that we can be proud of, if we want a world where our next generation gets smarter, more in touch, where we will actually have a world that can sustain us, then we have to be active. We have to be vocal. We have to be forceful. And we have to be imaginative. You got to stop thinking about how putting guns in our hands and think more along lines of, we want political change. We want better control over the things that we buy, the necessities that we need. Here's one way to do it. Stay at your homes. Don't buy anything. Don't drive your cars. Don't use your phones. Don't do anything. Send a message. And get as many of the people, 50% or better, in the United States, involved in this. And that will send a message almost like a snap of your fingers. It will do it. And it won't take years. It won't take months. It will take a couple of weeks, at most, for them to notice. You want the media to start being more objective and filled with context for better understanding. Same thing. You want better education where you don't have these pseudo people who have these degrees, but they're really just criminals that take bribes to put out misleading or false or whatnot out into the public mindset. Same thing. Use that same sort of pressure. So if you go to a school, if you go to go to these higher education places, and they're putting out this crap, then you know what you do? You don't go to school. You stop paying. You stop writing the checks. You get this. You get half or more of the student body to do that. You don't like the high cost that they charge. Again, use that same thing, because in the system, in the capitalistic system, where the 1% and 10% are the ones who are actually in power, all right, who hire their henchmen by buying them and putting into political seats, those are the ones you want to talk to. Those are the ones you want to send a message to. Those are the ones that are going to get the results. Because they're going to tell their henchmen, oh, well, back off. We're going to have to talk with these people. We're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to give. That's how you do it. You don't need to rise up with guns and planes and ships. That's how you do it. Because it's impossible to kill a quarter or 50% of a population of the country. And if it's been higher, it's you have to understand, a country is not your houses. It's not your bridges. It's not your cities. It's the people. The collective of every person in a country is the power. We have to remember that. And we have to use that power imaginatively, creatively, and with a force that can bring the changes we want and we need for the common good. And one way to do that is to do exactly what I just spoke of. Another way, if you want to push it along, and it's a good and it's actually a good thing, because you should combine both. And the other way is to protest out there in the millions. Have a sustained protest, day in and day out, at all hours. Have millions of us out there protesting for the common good. And that is how you get results. So, anyways, so the whole point is, don't be partisan. Don't include yourself in the color of your skin or the shape of your eyes. Understand, we're all humans, so therefore we are all humanist. And as a humanist, we can do anything. We can accomplish anything. We can run ourselves into a future that will give us prosperity, comfort, peace. It's not as hard. It's not as hard as everybody would like to make it out to. We can have a system that is nearly perfect, but that requires us taking an active role and not leaving it to somebody else to solve the problem. Because when we do, it will always be the criminals who want to get into position to offer you false cities and lies so that they can perpetrate crimes. That is how it has always worked. That is how it will continue to work until we realize the country is us. And as us, we vastly outnumber, because those who want control want to commoditize us, want to make us their piggy banks, want to make us their resources. If they want to go to the point where they can just pick somebody and say, "Oh, I like that. I like that. I like how she looks, so I want her, and she's gonna have to do anything and everything I want. So if I wanna rape her, if I wanna beat her, then that's what that's what we're allowed to do. These are the sorts of things that will happen if we are not active. And being part of being active is being informed. And to say that, oh, it's just the way it is, or it can't happen because these those are complications that are being pushed by those who want to stay in power, who want to have the power. We all just need to look at our common interests, our common things, such as we all would hate being stabbed by somebody. We all would hate having somebody drunk driving and kill us. We all hate somebody who would set fire to our homes, our work, or our churches, these are the sort of things. Just because some criminal or some misguided moron, criminally negligent moron, makes a rule, a statute, a law, does not make it legal. So, think about it, consider it, and hopefully this is enlightening.